What if I told you that some of the most iconic winners in Drag Race history, queens like Violet Chachki or Jada Essence Hall, weren't originally supposed to be there? In the world of production, this is what we call alternates. They are the Plan B queens waiting in the wings, and today we're talking about the sliding door of Drag Race casting. We're talking about the stars who were cast at the very last minute, who they replaced, and what the seasons will look like had those first choice queens been cast. Now, I'm sure many of you already know about the winners I listed at the beginning of the video as being alternates, but a lot of the queens I talk about in this video, I haven't heard anybody talk about before. And trust me, you won't believe who almost took Gottmik's spot on season 13. But first, let's go back to where this alternate trend truly began. By the way, I'm Conspira Sees, aka Luke here, and welcome back to another episode of Conspira Sees RuPaul's Drag Race. All Stars 1 is infamous for many reasons, but did you know that Mimi I'm First and Tammy Brown are widely considered the first alternates? You know, I've always thought with how stacked All Stars 1's cast was that these two always stood out as being early outs and not being the heavy hitters that the others kind of were. Now, it's rumored that these two were actually alternates for Willem and Fifi O'Hara, also known as Jeremy Carey nowadays. Now, Willem had a whole package ready to go and was apparently pulled out at the last minute because production couldn't get Fifi to also be there due to legal issues that she was having at the time. This explains why Willem had that cameo on All Stars 1. And I think this season would have been very different had Willem and Fifi actually been there. I think they would have gave us a lot of drama, but I think it was actually a smart decision to have Tammy and Mimi there. Tammy and Mimi kind of started the trend of wild card early out queens being cast on All Stars. And this season would not be the same, and it wouldn't be as iconic without these two. They gave us the single most iconic untucked moments of all time. Change your costume, change it around. Come on, Teletubby, teleport us to Mars. You, Mimi I'm First, were third in the voting. I could not believe. Out of all 50 of those bitches here, how did you manage to do that? What the fuck? No, I thought Mimi had turned over a new leaf, and guess who came back? The old Mimi. So many iconic quotes. It's honestly scary and quite shocking to think about a reality where they weren't cast. Although our next queen might be, dare I say, even more shocking than the first queen. Moving all the way to season 6, we have Bianca Del Rio. Yes, yet another winner is an alternate. This is discussed on Sibling Rivalry. And this is where things start to get serious because this isn't All Stars. This is the difference between being cast and not being a Ru girl at all. Can you imagine a reality where Bianca Del Rio was never on RuPaul's Drag Race, where she didn't have the career that she had? Without Bianca there, the entire season changes. All of those comedy challenges are wide open for the taking. And I think queens like Darian Lake and Ben de la Creme kind of swoop in and take most of those wins. And I think if we're looking at the end game, if I had to speculate, it would still be Adore and Courtney, and it would be either Darian or Ben de la Creme in that top 3. And I gotta be honest, I think Adore is the one who takes it in the end. And as much as I love Adore, imagining a reality where Bianca Del Rio isn't the winner, that's not a reality I wanna live in. Now, speaking of realities that I do wanna live in, a reality where season 7 is maybe actually a good season? I'm kidding, but yet another winner is an alternate. As we discussed at the beginning of the video, Violet Chachki was actually an alternate. What makes season 7 so strange is none of the finalists are really likable or rootable. To be quite frank, I mean, it really reminds me of season 17 in that way, where a lot of the non-finalists are more likable and more rootable than the actual finalists. We had Violet Chachki, Ginger Minj, and Pearl as the finalists. And I think Ginger Minj was never in contention for this season, unfortunately. We had just had Jinx and Bianca win, and I think they went into casting the season knowing that they wanted a Fashion Queen winner. And so that leaves us with 3 contenders at the beginning of the season: Miss Fame, Pearl, and Violet Chachki. And I think Miss Fame and Pearl both didn't live up to the fire that production wanted in a winner. Miss Fame was too cerebral and Pearl was too indifferent during the whole competition. Meanwhile, Violet Chachki was truly giving her all to the competition, and she was giving fashion and she was giving them drama and good TV. And so I think that's when production knew that they wanted her to win. But at the same time, I think if they had cast another fashion queen who was maybe more likable, or someone who maybe gave good fashion while also succeeding in a lot of the comedy challenges. I feel like this mystery queen, whoever pulled out before her, could have actually been the one to win other than her. But it's interesting to think about the fact that whoever replaced Violet Chachki on the season, I think stood a good chance of still winning the season in terms of what production wanted. Now, this next one is less verifiable, but it's actually on All Stars 2 with Coco Montrese. A lot of people believe that Coco Montrese was an alternate given her last-minute talent show and some of her runways on the season. A lot of people speculate the production's first choice was actually Laganja Estranja. This would make sense in terms of production loves a good storyline, and with Alyssa Edwards there, they could have had their first mother-daughter storyline that they would later have with Athena and Juicy. I think they also wanted the drama between Adore and Laganja that they had on season 6. You know, I always thought Adore being alone on the season was kind of strange to me. I mean, we had Tatiana and Fifi alone on the season, but that made sense because the heavy hitters from season 2 and 4 were already on All Stars 1, versus not pulling anybody else from season 6 always felt a little strange to me. And half of the cast being from season 5 also felt strange to me. So this one, I feel like there's a good chance that this is true, but I'm so glad we got to have Coco back. I think their little retread of Alyssa versus Coco from season 5 to All Stars 2 was great. I don't want to imagine a world where we don't get to see Coco Montrese's talent show, because that was iconic. Moving on to season 12, and this is truly where we enter a sort of multiverse of madness. This is crazy. I think one of the more popular casting decisions that we know about is Tamisha Iman from season 13 was originally supposed to be on season 12, but had to pull out last minute due to her cancer diagnosis, sadly, and was replaced by Jada Essence Hall. And this makes sense considering they were both pageant queens, right? The second queen to be an alternate was actually Dahlia Sin, who was an alternate for her drag sister, Candy Muse. These are interesting because we know who they replaced. And thinking about a season with Tamisha Iman and Candy Muse on season 12 together rather than season 13 is very interesting. The last queen who was an alternate is Nikki Doll. We don't know who she replaced, but to imagine a world where Nikki Doll doesn't make it onto season 12 and doesn't eventually become the host of France and become such a big name in France is honestly so wild to me. These casting decisions really are the butterfly effects of Drag Race. And speculating on what this season would look like had these changes not been made, I think it does change the end game of the season a bit. I think Candy Muse definitely makes it far. I think Tamisha doesn't make it as far as Jada does. I think she makes it further than she does on season 13. But I don't see Tamisha excelling in the design challenges or some of the comedy challenges in the same way that Jada did. And Candy, I feel like she would exceed in a lot of the comedy challenges that Jada had exceeded in, but I don't think, again, she would be very good in the design challenges as well. And so I think Tamisha maybe goes out 10th or 9th, and Candy maybe goes out 6th, 7th, or 8th, which leaves us with Gigi, Heidi, Jackie, and Crystal. And thinking about who makes the top 3 in this scenario, I think Jackie was just a little bit more consistent than Heidi, so I think we're left with a top 3 of Jackie, Gigi, and Crystal. And I think if we're looking at who was crowned previously, we had just had Evie, who was a more kooky queen. So I think this might actually be Gigi Good's moment to win. So congratulations to Gigi Good. Moving on to All Stars 5, and it's actually speculated that Mayhem Miller was an alternate for Nina Bonina Brown. We all know that Nina was contacted for All Stars 5, and when she heard that Shea Coulee might be on, she declined the invitation. And so that's when I think Mayhem Miller gets the call. And I think this season would have been, let's call it what it is, this season would have been way better had Nina Bonina Brown been cast, because I think the dynamic between her and Shea would have been so good because Nina was always in her head about Shea, and Shea always kind of got on that nerve with her. And I think despite that, I think Nina would have done very well on this season and would have probably replaced Blair or Mayhem in terms of placements on that season. I don't necessarily know that she makes the finale, but I think she definitely gets a redemption from her previous season. And the season gets a lot more drama than the drama that we had. I mean, we had 3 season 10 queens on that season, and that didn't really go anywhere. It was just like Blair and Mayhem being like, meh, and then kind of Ms. Cracker being a pseudo villain for half the season, weirdly. It's also worth mentioning that Mayhem Miller was apparently an alternate on UK vs. the World Season 2 as well. So looking at both of her seasons, it's crazy to think that both her All-Star seasons, she wasn't really the first pick, and there's a chance she couldn't have been on either of those seasons. Moving on to season 13, and this is the one that I'm surprised I've never heard about. So apparently Gottmik talked about on the first episode of No Gorge that she was an alternate on season 13. And this is a gag to me because I had always thought that Gottmik would have been one of their first choices on who to cast for that season. But it's speculated that she could have been a fill-in for Mistress Isabel Brooks. Now we know that Mistress Isabel Brooks was pretty far into the casting process for season 13, and she had to pull out due to an ankle injury. And so many people speculate that this is when Gottmik then gets the call and replaces Mistress. And to think about Mistress on that season, I just know that her and Candy Muse would butt heads, and that would be crazy, crazy drama. We know they're great friends in real life, but I just think Mistress would get under Candy's skin on that season, and there would be explosive fights. Interestingly enough, I think Mistress actually does take both wins that Gottmik gets on this season. I think Mistress wins the ball, and she also wins the snatch game. I mean, it was a strong snatch game. I still love Mistress's Rosie O'Donnell on season 15. I thought she was just hilarious there. And I genuinely think Mistress makes the finale. I think Mistress takes Candy's spot in the finale because we know production loves to tokenize. In production's eyes, they can only have one big girl in the finale, and I think Mistress is the one that takes it there, having just more polished drag than Candy does. And so that leaves us with a top four of Simone, Rosé, Mistress, and I'm going to say either Olivia Lux or Utica, and I feel like I would maybe actually give it to Utica just because I think with Gottmik not there, they want probably another Kooky Queen to fill that slot, and so I think Utica would be the one to put there. But either way, I think the top two actually ends up being Mistress and Simone, and I would give Mistress a 50-50 shot of winning this season. This then brings us to Canada vs. the World Season 1. And it's widely known that Kendall Jenner was actually an alternate for Trinity K. Bonet. Now, we know that Trinity K. Bonet was in Canada during the time of this filming, and she was seen at the airport and at her hotel during the time of filming. And maybe her being found out is one of the reasons she was pulled. I'm not sure if she had COVID or not. This was kind of during that time. I'm not sure what the reason was, but Kendall Jenner was then asked to be on the season. And I think her addition gives us 4 Canada queens on the cast. And so I think it makes the cast feel a little bit more like Canada versus the world. And it is shocking that she was one of the earlier outs. I mean, it makes sense considering maybe her package wasn't up to snuff. Thinking about the reality where Trinity K. Bonet is cast, that gives us 3 All-Star 6 girls on Canada versus the world. And so I think that gives us more storyline. I think she definitely would have given Silky and Raja a run for their money in the Girl Group Challenge, in the Design Challenge, in the Stand-Up Challenge. I think she would have had a fire under her after being snubbed of top 4 on All-Star 6. And so overall, I can see a reality where she does make the finale. So I really think it's a toss-up between those 3. And I can see any of them making the finale. And if Trinity does make the finale, I think she definitely makes top 2, considering she's a fierce lip syncer, and it definitely could have changed the trajectory of that season. Moving on to season 15, we actually have Malaysia Baby Doll Fox. Malaysia was apparently an alternate for Vita Von Teese Star. Now, Vita was actually pulled from season 15 filming. Now, imagining Vita on this season, I think she probably performs about the same as Malaysia did. I think she maybe gets a design challenge win in there. I think overall she would also be someone who Mistress would, I mean, Mistress can get under anybody's skin, let's be real. I think she would definitely have some conflict with Mistress in there as well season. And I think if Malaysia isn't there, we maybe lose out on her winning Miss Congeniality, which would be sad to see. Moving on to All-Stars 8, and we have elimination. We have Naysha Lopez. I'm sorry, girl. It had to be said though. Now, Naysha Lopez had less time to prepare her runway package than everybody else on this season. She's one of those girls where I think a lot of us weren't maybe ever expecting her to land on All Stars, but she's a Miss Congeniality and she has such a big name outside of the show that I think a lot of us thought maybe she could get that redemption. And unfortunately, I just don't think Drag Race is for her. I think she kind of gets in her head and tries to show us a persona that maybe isn't completely her, and that can kind of hinder her. It's unknown who she replaced, but Naysha has actually said that whoever this queen is, they actually spent their entire runway stipend before pulling out of filming last minute. I'm still happy that we got to have Naysha back on the season, and To be honest, I do think it's iconic to be eliminated 3 out of the 4 episodes that you were on Drag Race for. And so, much love to Nisha. Now, fun fact, this is an alternate that was never actually cast on the season, but Kennedy Davenport was actually an alternate for All Stars 9 before eventually being moved to Canada versus the World Season 2. And then eventually being on All Stars 11. And imagining a world where Kennedy is on All Stars 9, let's just say it would definitely have been a better season because Kennedy brings the drama, she brings the TV in a way that I think a lot of those girls didn't bring. And Kennedy's a pageant queen, she's competitive, and I think despite the format, Kennedy would have gone hard. And so I think All Stars 9 is probably a worse season for that, in my opinion. This then brings us to All Stars 10. And this is one of the most famous alternates in Drag Race history. Of course, we have Lydia B. Collins from season 17. And this one is so interesting. She's apparently an alternate for Maddie Morphosis. And Maddie Morphosis apparently pulled out last minute. Imagining this season with Maddie Morphosis is so hard because she's so popular in the real world, but I just think if she came back, it's hard for me to imagine how her deadpan humor would translate to Drag Race. I think she had some good moments, and I do think if she was cast, production maybe would have put their hand in a little bit and guided her so that she did well in the challenges, just because she's such a big name outside of the show. But for whatever reason, Maddie decided to not participate in the season. I think maybe she was like, you know what, I don't want to risk doing badly and having that ruin this great reputation that I've made outside of the show. So production's first choice was actually Mirage. Mirage was the alternate for All Stars 10. But Mirage declines the invitation, and I think production at that point kind of scrambles, and eventually they land on Lydia B. Collins. And this is an unprecedented casting decision considering it's never happened before. We had Aja in All Stars 3 and Monet and Mohart in All Stars 4 who had filmed their All Star seasons right after their seasons, but their seasons had already aired at that point. And there had been multiple months in between the airing of their seasons and filming their next All-Star seasons. So they had enough time to grow and recoup money and see themselves on TV for their next season. Meanwhile, Lydia comes back a month after she films the actual season. And I think in some ways this can kind of be an advantage for her in the sense that she was just there. She has the critiques fresh in her mind, and her mind is still kind of in competition performance mode. She knows exactly what she did wrong, and she's able to apply everything because it's just so fresh. And production was taking a gamble because they didn't know what the fan perception of her would be on season 17. And she comes back, and she had won the roast on her season, and she comes back and she wins 2 challenges on this season. She wins the design challenge and she wins the Rusical. And this was a huge redemption. I mean, she went from winning 1 challenge on her original season to then winning 2 completely different challenges than she had won on her original season. She had prided herself on making all of her looks, and I think that's one of the reasons why she was able to come back so quickly. She made all of her looks coming back to this season as well. And it's such a redemption case, and she actually ends up being a finalist for the season. And it just makes me so happy to see for her. She is the most popular queen from season 17. And that's why I always say that season 17 reminds me of season 7, where the non-finalists are more popular than the actual finalists. Susie 2, Corey King, Lydia Butthole Collins, they all are fan favorites and they're all so popular. And to be honest, I would love to see her come back. Now, before we get to our last queen, I should mention that apparently Mandy Mango was actually an alternate for a queen named Rain LaRue. Now, apparently this queen was cast, and there was rumors going around her local scene that she had been cast, and it caused her to get into altercations with these other local castmates. And so I think production at that point had decided that they were just going to pull her entirely. And so that's where Mandy Mango gets the call. I think it makes sense why she maybe wasn't originally called, considering her drag is maybe a little bit more on the crunchy side, but she made up for that with her talent in spades. Mandy Mango won that lip sync, and I think she was kind of put unfairly in the bottom for the RDR Live Challenge. I mean, I think she did really well in that, and she delivered exactly what the character should have been. But production just, they wanted Mandy out. And so that brings us to present day with All Stars 11. I'm sure you've all heard the rumors that Sam Starr was apparently an alternate for Susie 2. Now, this actually isn't the case according to Jasmine Kennedy. Many people have also speculated that she was an alternate for Calorie Kardashian Williams. According to Jasmine Kennedy on Twitter, this is also not the case. So who did Sam Starr replace? Lots of people speculate that it was actually Utica who originally got the call, but decided to go on Project Runway instead of being on All Stars 11. And then they called Sam up. And I've seen a lot of people saying that maybe Sam Starr is going back too early. And I gotta be honest, I just disagree with that take. I think Sam Starr could come back at any time and it would be the same result because I think Sam Starr's drag is already fully formed. I think her one critique on her season was that she was too polished and too perfect, and she needed to learn to let go, and she needed to learn to be ugly. And judging by her promo and entrance look, she's already taking that critique on in spades. That ish was ugly, okay? But in all seriousness, I really do think that all Sam Starr has to do when she comes back is let go and show that she can be goofy and be ugly, and that's all she'll really need to do to exceed in the challenges. I think Sam Starr's storyline is almost identical to her drag mother Trinity. They both were polished pageant queens whose storylines on their original season was about learning to let go and learning that they could be funny. And I think coming into All Stars 11, Sam has to prove the same thing that Trinity did. Trinity had to come into All Stars 4 knowing that she was funny and applying that. And I think that's what Sam Starr has to do. They're both already pageant perfection. I think their storylines will reflect each other's on All Stars. Let me know if you guys know of any alternate queens that I missed. Drop them down below in the comments. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe if you enjoy my content and would like to see more. All right, you guys, bye.